Hello, you're very welcome back to the NFL Matchbook Betting Podcast. It's week 7. Drew's in the house. He's back. Drew, how are you?
I'm well, although I don't get to give Pizza a hard time. He implied that I was a Zinfandel drinker last week. I cannot even believe, I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't tell if that was, he didn't know that that was a slight or if it was, or if that was an intended barb. But I was enjoying Pinot Noir on the coast last week, not Zinfandel. But either way, excited to be back. Very happy to handicap week 7 with you gentlemen, and hope you guys are well.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And as Drew alluded to there, another late injury report came in there, and Rob is unavailable. So we have Suma down the bottom here. Suma, how are you?
Fine, guys. Everything's all right on my end. No Zinfandel for me. Maybe a beer later.
Well, listen, we've got a packed show here today on week 7. But before we get to all that, I do want to point you in the way for listeners in the UK and Ireland. All week, as you might be aware, is Safer Gambling Week. And normally what a lot of firms do would maybe like touch on it at the start and not talk too much about it, I guess. But we want to kind of put a bit of a reel to it. And Drew, I know you want to speak a little bit about making betting fun and also how to deal with those losing runs, because we all suffer them as bettors.
Yes. And if you're somewhat new to this, even if you are really experienced doing this, there is no denying that either extended winning, extended losing can put you into a very, very difficult place as a bettor, because tilt is real, especially on the losing side. And I think realistically, it does not matter how many years you've been doing this. Ultimately, we're handicapping a sport with an oblong ball that is refereed with rules that none of us really understand. And turnovers and penalties and weather oftentimes determine, wins and losses here. So the randomness is a part of the game, but we love it. It's fun, and it should be fun. And, kind of getting used to, the ups and downs is a huge part of the process. And it took me a really, I reflect on myself as a younger bettor, surely, and, had winning runs that were but my process was just completely ridiculous. It was trash. And, and I don't even know if I would even, be here or, be doing this type of content if I hadn't had just absurd luck out of the gate betting the NFL. And, I think you have to absolutely understand and respect, your ability to, predict the future, which is, impossible. And, some breaks are going to go your way. Sometimes they're going to go against you. And the important thing is to kind of, keep a level head, not to, do not, try to avoid chasing losses. That's sort of the most common mistake that I see younger players make. You go into a given Sunday, you have a bunch of good bets. The market is with you. Things don't break your way. You get to the primetime game and you decide, you know what? I'm going to up my stake to 5 times as my normal stake so I can win it all back in one swoop. And the next thing you know, you've zeroed out your account and you got to reload on Monday. That is not a good feeling. It is not a good way to enjoy the sport or to be a responsible bettor. So, I would advise everyone to just, kind of take a deep breath, reflect in, the randomness that exists in this sport, and, gamble responsibly.
Well said, Drew. I couldn't put it better myself. And as Rob Pizzola says, we do actually bet real dollars on this thing. So it's a line that's always stuck with me, to be fair. So for more information, visit the link in the description on Safer Gambling. But I thought Drew spoke very well there for sure. Suma, we're going to go to week 6 takeaways. Talk to me about the Packers.
Man, I mean, I did not expect that, to be honest. Like, I had some Jets plus 7.5 shares last week, but I did not expect that the Jets would win 27-10, almost shut out the Packers. At least it felt like watching the game that the Green Bay Packers offense could not really do anything. They got crushed at the line of scrimmage. Sauce Gardner was taking any way that the Packers threw at his direction. And the Packers really look like having issues on both sides of the ball. And then it was also funny that after the game, Aaron Rodgers said that we have to simplify the offense. And he was probably referencing to all those motions, which really made the offense really good in the past, especially the run game and the play action game off of it. And then Mike LaFleur just saying he doesn't know what he's talking about. So,
Yeah.
I mean, their run defense is bad. Their passing offense is not good. They don't seem to get into any rhythm. Rodgers dealing with a hand injury. I mean, right now it's really looking that for the first time in years, I don't know when the last time was that the Packers might not win the division. And it's not because there is some other team being just far ahead of them. It's probably just because the Packers are not good this year. Yeah,
and then you and Rob had a good back and forth, and Rob couldn't bring himself to back the Jets, but you did put them up in fairness to you, Suma. So Drew, I see you laughing there.
Yeah, and I think it's fun that the Jets are winning. Congratulations, guys. You know, eat it up. Same with the Giants. Good job, guys. And they've kind of soaked up a lot of the national attention in the light of last week. Like, oh my gosh, look at these surprise teams that are, you know, like in the mix, 4 or 5 wins. Like, nice. There were really only 2 games that mattered last week. Only 2.
Yeah.
Everyone else except for the Panthers is live for a playoff spot. We have no idea what the playoff picture looks like right now, but there were 2 games that had huge high leverage for the ultimate, playoff and championship equity. The first is obvious. It was Chiefs-Bills in Kansas City. I thought Kansas City, they got an absolute, an A game out of their defense in terms of key stops, high leverage stops, turnovers early. Like, they really set their team up for a win, which would have flipped the balance of the AFC, because the path goes through a rested Kansas City team. It's going to be very tough to keep them out of the Super Bowl. Now the path goes through potentially a rested Buffalo team, which, I mean, best of luck to anyone else in the AFC. It is, that team was not even healthy for that matchup against the Chiefs. They get the win anyway. I think you have to really kind of look carefully right now at the AFC, futures market, and decide if you want any of these prices at all, because you're going to be, if you're facing the Bills in round 2 of the playoffs, you're going to be a 7-ish point dog probably with them coming off the bye, and if you're facing them in the championship game in Buffalo, even Kansas City, they're going to be 4.5, 5-point dogs. So it's it really. Was pretty stark to see how much of the AFC Championship equity is now in the Bills' corner, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Looking at their schedule, similarly in the NFC, you could have completely leveled the playoff field if the Cowboys come away with an upset against the Eagles. But the Eagles went in there very focused and executed, I thought, a very efficient game plan, particularly in the first half of that contest. Again, kind of thinking about this in terms of championship equity, a win now over your rival Cowboys, who may be the only other team in the NFC to kind of give you a real test this year, puts you head and shoulders above them, your last undefeated team. And I think realistically, the NFC goes through Philadelphia. It's a tough place to play. We remember very well from their run in 2018 with Nick Foles and company. Nobody could really go into that house and make anything positive offensively. So it's going to take a lot to dethrone them now in the NFC. There are a couple of quarterbacks who can do it if their teams get healthy. I'm looking squarely at Tom Brady in Tampa still. But I think realistically, we went from things were still pretty wide open to a pretty clear focus in the futures market in both conferences in 1 week, which is wild.
Last thing on the Chiefs, they play Chargers 20th of November. Chargers, any chance of winning the AFC West?
I think they're alive, certainly. They seem to have special teams on their side now, which is not something you could have ever said about the Chargers.
I'm a Chargers fan. It's a couple of times this year, which is crazy, yeah.
I would make them live in that game. They're going to have to avoid any surprises between now and then. And they're going to need to get healthier on the offensive line, big time. Yeah. The second half and the overtime, period for Chargers Broncos, it was really sad trying to see that offense do anything. And granted, they were up against a great defense in Denver. If they don't get healthier, if they don't, kind of take a meaningful step forward, they're not scoring enough points to beat the Chiefs, even at home. That said, there are probably 7 teams who are live to jump up into and kind of seize sort of that third ranking right now in the AFC power, by power number. And the Chargers are probably at the top of that list just because of the ceiling that Herbert provides them.
Yeah, be fascinating how that plays out. That's the 20th of November. Looking forward to that if the Chargers can get there with a couple of wins. Okay, we're going to cover 5 games given that we have a depleted panel here with Drew and Suma. So it's going to be the Chiefs at 49ers, Jets at Broncos, Giants at Jags, Seahawks at the Chargers, and Falcons at the Bengals. So we'll start off with the Chiefs at 49ers and take a look at the betting we have at matchbook.com. So the money line has Chiefs at 1.74. The handicap gives 49ers a 2.5 head start at 1.97, and the current total is 48.5. Suma, set up this game. What's your thinking going into it? Have you any leans, bets, or does it all depend on injuries, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the final injury report, you can probably make a case for either side and either total in this game. Also, depending on where the prices are going to move later in the week.
It's true.
Really,
it's not wrong.
Yesterday, someone bet the entire board on Niners +3. Don't know why, because we don't really know the injury report yet, and we also didn't know what was going to happen yesterday. So pretty interesting that someone moved the entire market on the Niners already. If you just look at the injury report, like Trent Williams coming back from the ankle sprain might play. Mike McGlinchey dealing with a calf contusion. Don't know whether he's going to play. Might be a game time decision. Then on the other side, Javon Kinlaw, IR. Eric Armstead will be out. Nick Bosa was limited. Might be back from his groin strain. Might not be back. Might not be at 100%. Probably if he's going to play, he will likely be on a snap count. Charvarius Ward has that groin injury. Might play, might not play. He was DNP yesterday. Emmanuel Mosley already on IR. Their safety from Hawaii, whose name I cannot spell,
Hufanga
is in the concussion protocol. Jimmy Ward might play with a cast on his broken hand. Like, this is a really, really long injury report. And let's just say that the Niners will really be without a lot of key players on defense. And let's say Nick Bosa is 50-50 to play, might be on a snap count, might be limited. I'm having a really, really hard time seeing the KC offense struggling in this game. Because, like, how are they going to stop Patrick Mahomes if their D-line is missing 3 starters and they don't have a healthy secondary? Because this defense, which is really good when healthy, depends highly on that front 4 rush, linebackers covering ground, and the secondary playing very, very disciplined. But if you are without, let's say, 3 secondary starters and 3 guys along your defensive line, then it will happen that the Falcons run on you all day long, and then it will probably happen that Patrick Mahomes will throw on you all day long. And then let's switch to the other side. I think that the Niners offense is entirely fine with Jimmy Garoppolo. Nothing to argue there, but this could be very game script dependent, because let's say the Chiefs are able to score, they get a lead. Then you have Jimmy Garoppolo, who is really bad under pressure. Very high splits between clean pocket and pressure rates, EPA per play, and stuff like that. And Jimmy Garoppolo is playing behind an offensive line that has basically 3 below average starters along the interior. Trent Williams coming off the high ankle sprain. Mike McGlinchey might not back. And the Chiefs defense really can apply pressure. Steve Spagnuolo really can dial up some stuff, blitzing, getting pressure. The Niners will probably have success in the run game, but I think that if they get into a game script where Jimmy Garoppolo, like last year against a very hapless Falcons pass rush, has to throw at some point and really has to come out in true passing sets, that could really make it tough on the Niners offense. So it depends on the injury report. If the Niners will be without a lot of their defensive players, I can see KC having a good game, which might put the Niners into a bad game script. On the other side, if they get some players back or if they have both tackles, I can also see the Niners offense moving the ball here. which would make it a much more evenish game. But yeah, we will see what injury report gives us. Right now at 2.5, and with the injury estimates, I would slightly lean towards KC, but maybe there are going to be some surprises on Friday, Saturday, and that could switch.
Yeah, Drew, I guess it all depends on those 49ers and defensive injuries right now.
Yeah, the Niners are funny because I think I said it. I might have even said it on this show when Trey Lance went down and Jimmy came in. In my mind, they went from a team with the broadest range of outcomes to one with a very narrow range of outcomes, and we knew who they were. And that's never been the case with the Niners for me, and it's certainly not the case now. It seems to me, at least, like the injuries and the uncertainty, week to week variability for this team is just part of their DNA. And to go from as impressive as they looked against the Panthers in a tough spot to as terrible as they looked against the Niners in a great spot is very, very confusing. Now, I get it. They are dealing with a million injuries. They are not at full strength, but they haven't been for like 2 years, really, since their last Super Bowl, which ironically was against the Chiefs. And, I think coming into this game, the positive reports that you're seeing about Trent Williams matter. I think if he goes, then that gives the offense a humongous boost, because the Chiefs, I would expect to take advantage of this weekend offensive line and really put pressure on Garoppolo, the way Suma mentioned, particularly if it's a game state that's in favor of the Chiefs. But I would say that as with a healthy Williams, they have a dynamic enough attack, and it's unique enough that it should catch the Chiefs off guard to the tune of they can play ahead in this game. And they have the defensive strength as when fully rostered to absolutely go toe to toe with Mahomes in this particular defense. I think that what we're learning, and one of the key takeaways I had of the game plan that the Bills brought into the game last week, was that you can do a decent job of defending this version of the Chiefs defense. There was a huge pivot from the way defense was played in the NFL to the way defense has been played the last couple of years with the two high safeties. And that was largely in response to Pat Mahomes specifically. His ability to hit the home run and what the Chiefs offense was doing the last handful of years forced the entire NFL to change. Now that it has changed, the Chiefs kind of pivoted to a more we'll matriculate the ball. We'll go to Kelsey whenever we need the emergency valve play. We'll still let Pat Mahomes operate out of structure from time to time, and let him scramble and make plays on the ground and shoot for some home run balls. But we're not going to be the over the top type of offense that we were in the past. And I thought that the way they were defended last week by the Bills was pretty much the blueprint for how you want to do it. And now, if you're at full strength with this Niners defense, you can do exactly what the Bills did last week, but your players are even better than the guys the Bills had, particularly in the secondary. So I think, at full strength, this is a Niners money line play for me. But you kind of need to have that information in pocket before you make a bet either way, because if you ultimately are holding a Niners ticket on the money line or at +2.5, and Bosa doesn't go, Hufanga is unavailable because of the concussion, and the cornerbacks are at 50% and or unavailable, specifically Jimmy Ward, specifically Charvarius Ward, then you got a problem on your hands. And I am not feeling great holding a money line ticket expecting Jimmy G to be my savior if he is out there by himself.
Yeah, no, it's good advice from the guys. This is definitely one to wait for the day. So kickoff on Sunday is 9:25 UK time, so maybe check out Sunday morning, Sunday afternoons, see what the team is there, and make your play. Slight lean from both towards the 49ers though, so one to maybe, as I said, watch that injury report. So we'll move on to the Jets at the Broncos. Incidentally, we see a lot of the comments there because there's only 3 of us on. We will try and get to a couple at the end, so do keep your comments in and hit that thumbs up button. So as I mentioned, Zuma's Jets at the Broncos. With current betting that we have at Matchbook.com, we got Jets available at 2.0. Broncos are the favorites at 1.83. The handicap Broncos, Jets are getting a 1 point head start, and the total is currently 38.0. and that's pretty 50-50 at the moment. The price board was down there incidentally, so I took some prices there, general prices, but they should be back up there now. So we'll go to you, stick with you on this one, Drew. Where are you? I guess you love talking about Russell Wilson. Like maybe talk about him. I know everyone's been talking about him, but like, and I know like he's moved from Seattle and it just hasn't happened. But is it a mindset thing on him? Is that a bit harsh? And like obviously he does these stupid videos that everyone's seen at this point. But I don't know. Can you explain in a deeper meaning what's happened with Russell Wilson at Denver so far?
Okay, so it's tricky because a lot of the off the field stuff is noise.
Yes,
usually, but when you're playing poorly, it becomes more than that. Right. And, it's similar to off the top talking about responsible gambling and not chasing your losses. Like you don't want to add to your misery if you're not playing well. And everything that he's doing off the field is adding to his misery because it's fun, frankly, to pick on a guy who's acting like that and also not playing well. Now, all of that said, the principal reason he's not playing well, I would boil it down into these two concepts. Going back again to the two high safeties and the defensive framework that has swept the league, it was developed to stop Mahomes, but it had the unintended consequence of ruining Russell Wilson. Ruined him. Like he is a shorter quarterback. He is not really able to operate in a structured system where you're giving him intermediate stuff over the middle of the field because he doesn't see it as effectively and he doesn't always trust that he's making the correct decision. He doesn't want to give away the ball on bad decisions there. He likes to operate down the field and along the sidelines, which is where the too high look is most effective at just stopping those big plays from happening. And so he has not evolved into into a style of play that is commensurate with the way defenses are currently playing broadly. And I think that is affecting his performance this season, on top of the fact that his head coach is Nathaniel Hackett, who's having a very tough time managing all the responsibilities of being both the head coach and the offensive coordinator for the first time in his career, particularly when he hasn't called plays since 2018. So there are a lot of moving parts here, but it's very clear that the offensive system and Wilson, as currently able to operate at quarterback, are not fitting well to what we have come to expect from him in terms of quality of performance. Now, all that said, there were obvious flashes at the beginning of that Chargers game when he was operating within script. They spent the extra time that they had between their Thursday game and the Monday game, and they developed a whopper of a good game plan coming out of that, into that game. And they didn't have any adjustments in pocket for halftime. I don't know if they thought they didn't need them or if they just made bad ones, but they never looked anywhere close to as good as they did in the scripted portion at the beginning of that game. And ultimately, they didn't get enough of a lead to fend off the Chargers there. Assuming Wilson ultimately goes in this game and plays through the hamstring injury and the shoulder injury and whatever else is going on with him, I would still very, very much like a position on the Broncos in this one. And this is mostly just because you are buying them at the very, very, very bottom of the market. Yeah. And you happen to be facing a team in the Jets, which you can sell at the top of the market, at least in the short term, because what the Jets have been doing, while very cool and exciting and good, has come against very inferior competition generally. And it has been entirely on the basis of defense, special teams, and some fluky plays. This offense is not controlling their success at all. Zach Wilson is still struggling mightily in year two, particularly when he's under pressure, particularly against certain sets of defenses. And the Broncos are clearly, in my mind, a top 3 defense in the NFL as rostered. And they have specific singular standout players who I think can utterly smother the young talented skill position players for the Jets. So this Broncos defense licking their chops at home, at altitude, against the Jets team that's coming in with a couple of wins, patting themselves on the back about how great they've looked and how everyone in New York's talking about how great they are. Not a great spot whatsoever for the Jets. I think their offense is going to have to get to 20 points probably to win this game, and I just don't see it happening. if the Broncos ultimately pull the switcheroo and Russ Wilson gets the week off because he's got to feel better about himself, then so be it. I still find being on the Broncos with Brett Rippon. I think he can operate the same offense, maybe even in it's going to look different. It's going to be unexpected, and the Jets may not have a plan for it. I'm hopeful Wilson goes. I'm hopeful he bounces back. I'd like to see him, get a little bit of have a resurgence and a comeback story this season. But for me, the fair price in this one is north of 3. So I'm happy to have Broncos in pocket at -1, -1.5, -2.5. I would sell out to for a better price. I would stop at 3 if this is if this ultimately is Russell is confirmed and they closes Broncos 3. I think that's close enough to fair for me to pass if you're watching this on Sunday. But ultimately, I would expect the Broncos to win largely on the strength of their defense.
Yeah, Suma, Drew touched on it there in terms of the Jets' offense and maybe not being able to get enough scores, despite the total being very low at 38. And I know it's been an unders year. You're still can probably make a case at under 38.0 currently.
To be honest, it's hard to make a case for the over here. Also, based on everything that Drew has said. One thing I want to touch on, after week 5, 6, we realize how often we were wrong going to the season on some teams, on some players and whatever. And damn, I was wrong on the Broncos offense. I really thought that Russell Wilson would be back to full strength, that he was behind his mallet finger, new system, Nathaniel Hackett coming over from Green Bay, decent offensive line that's not playing bad at all, decent wide receiving group, decent running back group. Like, I really thought that this offense would be kind of a top 10 offense going into the year. Was completely wrong on that. And I mean, it's not even the thing that Russell Wilson might not be able to execute such an offense playing from the pocket, but he's also not throwing to open guys that are in front of him. Like there was a third down against the Chargers where I don't know who exactly it was. I think it was Greg Dulcich was sitting in front of him. There was a gap between the center and the right guard, I guess. So he was looking straight to that guy. It would have been a first down, and he was not throwing the ball to him. Like, I don't know what's happening there. It's really hard to explain, and I think there's some stuff going on that even goes beyond the he cannot execute the scheme stuff. It's because those kind of plays really make me shake my head, and I just think that I don't know what's happening there. Going to the game, because I cannot make a case for the over even at 38. I have a guessing game for you guys.
Oh dear.
Zach Wilson, according to Pro Football Focus, was under pressure for 29 dropbacks this season in his 3 games. Guess the amount of completions that he has under pressure.
Out of 29?
Out of 29 dropbacks.
I mean, league average in that scenario, you're probably getting 15 to 18. I'm going to say 10.
Daniel?
I'll go a little bit lower. 8.
It's 4.
4 out of 29?
Kept going.
Oh 29 dropbacks. I think he only had 23 attempts because there were some sacks and throwaways, and he completed 4 passes on 29 pressure dropbacks. He right now has the highest gap between clean pocket grade and pressure grade. Like, the average in the grades is 65. It's completely ridiculous. And this week, he's facing a defense that is 3rd in EPA per dropback, 3rd in dropback success rate, 3rd in pass rushing grade. Wow. 2 good edge rushers in Baron Browning and Bradley Chubb. The one thing that the Broncos really do well this year is defending the pass. I think they're doing one heck of a job on that side of the ball. So I also think that they will make it really hard on Zach Wilson when he throws the ball. But also the Broncos don't have the greatest run defense. So in my opinion, the only recipe for the Jets going into this game can be, let's run the ball again and see what happens. I mean, you cannot go into this game and let Zach Wilson drop back 35 times. I don't see a scenario in which this is happening. Maybe if the Broncos lead 20-0 at halftime or something, but I just cannot see a scenario. I think it will be a very slow game. There's also a little bit of wind in the forecast. We'll see what happens on that side. But I mean, this is such a tough matchup for the Jets' passing offense. And let's be honest, their passing offense has not been existent. Like, there were 2 drives maybe in the Steelers game, 1 drive in the Dolphins game. Everything else was just running game, short fields, and stuff like that. And on the other side, I mean, if you give me Russell Wilson with a shoulder and a hamstring injury, or Brett Ripien against a banged up offensive line, Garrett Bowles is on IR against a Jets defense that getting better every week. Their pass rush is really top 5 material right now. Sauce Gardner can lock down Cortland Sutton on the outside. And all of a sudden, I think we will get the same Broncos offense that we saw for the past couple of weeks. And then in the end, I think that game will ultimately be decided like who can make a few more big plays, which defense can create more space. And I'm struggling to see many touchdowns in this game. So even at 38, it's very hard to go over.
He makes a good case, Drew, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me feel better about my Broncos position, honestly. Like, Broncos need how many points to win this one, Suma? 17?
17-20.
Yeah. I think they can get there.
Yeah. Couple of plays there with the unders and the Broncos. I really like that under shout, Suma. I might lock that in as a bet just because as you were talking, the more you were talking, I was like, this is unders. So that's under 38.0, currently priced at 1.95. Drew made a good case for Broncos also up to 2.5. So basically they're the two selections, but we'll lock in the unders as an official play for the podcast. And we'll move on to the 5-1 Giants at the Jaguars. And so you would think the Jags with 2-4. They're currently 1.66 favorites. Giants are 2.4. The handicap gives Giants a 3-point head start, and the total is 42.5. We'll go to you, Drew, on this one. To explain to someone who just lands in, looks at the coupon, hasn't watched any of the NFL so far, sees the records. Giants 5-1, Jags 2-4. Explain to the viewers how we've gotten here as Giants are massive favorites.
The Giants are at the top of the table. How can they be 2.4 to these guys facing relegation? No, exactly. the market looks to have downgraded the Giants based on a win last week against the Ravens, which is incredible. But amazing, here we are. I don't know really what to make of this beyond the fact that the Jaguars are the right side, and I'm annoyed that I didn't get to bet them at 2.5 and it's 3. I think the reason that the line is what it is, Giants are 5-1, despite the fact that they have yet to put together anything of sustained competence on offense. They have had now 2 back-to-back wins against bona fide good teams in the Packers and the Ravens, yet in both cases they had to come from behind in somewhat fluky fashion. And the way that turnovers bounce, they are relatively clean this year in terms of turning the ball over. That is a new thing. That is a new phenomenon. Daniel Jones used to be one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks in the entire league. And if he has all of a sudden solved that problem, then he is all of a sudden a league average quarterback, maybe a little bit better. I don't know that I have enough evidence to tell you he has solved that problem, but I can tell you that the scheme that the Giants are using is at least taking away some of the likelihood that he would, be prone to those turnovers. So maybe this is repeatable. But whatever the case is, the market is expecting that this Giants offense still has a lot of questions to answer. The offensive line has specific holes, particularly looking at the right side of that line. And I think the wide receiver group is very weak. And so on paper, outside of Saquon Barkley, you don't really see a lot of concern in terms of these guys are going to be able to score 20 points. The Jaguars, on the other hand, young quarterback, good coach in Doug Peterson, good offensive statistics, good EPA per play from Lawrence this season, improvement over, major improvement over last season. Like a lot of signs that things are building in the right direction there. They just don't have the win-loss results to show it. And so strictly from wins and losses, you can't even begin to start handicapping this game. You must look deeper. And I think people are identifying that the Giants are somewhat soft in the defensive, in certain portions of their defense that favors the Jaguars. The Giants are somewhat weak on offense and again prone to turnovers, and that could potentially manifest in a week where they have to go on the road at the Jaguars, who are backs against the wall, season on the line, must get a win kind of mentality right now. So I try to do a decent job of capturing uncertainty by simulating how a game will play out. I have an enormous modal result of Jaguars winning this one by 3. So I didn't ultimately make a play. Again, like if it had been 2.5, I would have bet 3. I would have laid the points in a blink of an eye. But at 3, I'm somewhat hesitant. They're going to need to find a way to play from ahead in this one. Put Daniel Jones in a situation where he's in dropbacks and they can generate pressure with their pass rush, which is their strength on defense. I think they can do it, but I'm not high enough conviction to get involved playing this game one way or the other.
Yeah, Suma, take Drew's confidence level as here regarding the Jags. Are you above, below? You're muted, Suma.
I'm
take
muted.
Take two.
Classic. There's not very much to add. I mean, I agree with everything that Drew has said. The 2 fluky-ish wins for the Giants, I think it was vice versa for the Jaguars the past 2 weeks. They should have won against the Texans. They, in my opinion, should have won or came at least very close at beating the Colts. And I think I dug a little bit into the numbers today, and I think the big difference between these 2 teams right now is the performance on early downs versus late downs. So here are some numbers. Net success rate, offensive minus defensive success rate on early downs, Jacksonville first in the league, Giants 25th in the league. Net EPA per play on early downs, Jacksonville third, Giants 26th. Then when it gets to late downs, 3rd and 4th down, net success rate, Giants 4th, Jacksonville 21st. Net EPA per play on late downs, Giants 5th, Jacksonville 25th. So that has really been the, in my opinion, hidden driver. I mean, late downs are part of the game, and some teams will always be better on those. We just saw it with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen last Sunday. Good quarterbacks will always be better on late downs than bad quarterbacks, good offenses, and vice versa. But these splits are so drastic. I mean, the Jaguars are really moving the ball on early downs, and then at some point they get stuck. Last week, the Colts, I think they converted like 12 or 13 third downs out of 15 or something. It was really ridiculous. So that stuff, early downs is more sneaky because we have more early downs than late downs, more crucial situations on late downs. That stuff has to somewhat regress at some point. It might be, or hopefully this week. I also like the Jaguars laying 3 here. Another point that could be a little bit of a noise because we're not dealing with great sample size, but Daniel Jones, 39% play action rate this year. We would have never seen this from Jason Garrett last year, I think. He has the highest passing rate on play action by Pro Focus, but the Jaguars defense is 2nd in the league in EPA per play against play action passes, minus 0.17 EPA per play on 54 pass attempts. There might be something, it could also be noise, but that might be one angle to look at. Also, Giants coming off 5-1, tough road game in the heat of Jacksonville, or at least warm weather. That's something that I would never base my bet just on that, but that's just something to consider. Overall, I think these teams are not like 3 wins differentiated. And yeah, I think Jacksonville is still the better team overall, and I hope they can pull this one off.
We lock in Jags -3, 1.95, Suma. Let's do it. Let's do it. A lean there from Drew as well. So we're missed the 2.5. So obviously, if you're listening to this on Sunday and it's gone down to 2.5, you've got the best of the number. But we'll lock in at the moment. Jags -3, 1.95. And we will move on to any final thing there, Drew?
Well, I was going to ask Suma, do you think there's a bet to be made on Jags in the AFC South at current price?
I think at current prices, it's probably a good idea because we have Tennessee and Colts taking away one win out of the win column. I also said it last week that if someone wanted to bet on the Jags to win the division, probably a good time last year. I mean, this week it's probably even better. They are favored by 3 at home. Tennessee and Colts facing off, so might be a good timing.
Yeah, +367, so almost 4-1. I bet you shop around, you can find an even better price. I think that's a bet too.
Yeah.
Bonus outright bets there for anyone listening in. We'll move on to the Seahawks at the Chargers. Take a look at the betting here before I go to Suma. We got Seahawks available at 3.05. The Chargers are 1.46 favorites. The handicap gives the Seahawks a 5.5 head start at 1.88, and the total is high. It's 50.5, slightly shaded towards the under at 1.94. Suma, take it away on Seahawks at Chargers. Where are you with the Chargers? We touched on the Broncos game on Monday night. Me personally, watching the YouTube highlights because the game's on too late here in Ireland. I was disappointed with Chargers couldn't get anything going, albeit against a decent defense. I know Justin Herbert didn't throw a passing touchdown, as was all over Twitter, given a particular sportsbook enhanced the price. I think that deserves a mention. But for you, Chargers, what was your thoughts on Monday Night Football?
Very disappointing. I mean, you can say that, okay, they were without their starting left tackle, without their starting center, both guys, I would argue, top 5 at their position, league-wide. Not having a almost all-pro center is really, really rough, especially when you go against such a defense. So there's something to apply context here. Keenan Allen was also out. So I don't want to give them a pass for that game because it was still underperforming. I mean, you have to score more than, let's say, 19 points in such a game, especially when you are consistently, when your defense is consistently able to stop the opposing team and you get some opportunities to drive the ball down the field. You cannot go out of that game with such a disappointing performance. And to be honest, I think there were 4 defensive pass interference flags against the new Broncos cornerback. So it was not like the 19 points were really, let's say, earned, where they drove down the field. I think there were 2 DPIs where I thought you cannot throw a flag there. So really disappointing. I'm extremely disappointed in the OC, in Joe Lombardi. Is it Joe Lombardi? I think so. Really disappointed because that scheme doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's basically still the Drew Brees quick game offense. And I think with Justin Herbert, with a quarterback who can buy time in the pocket, who has such a mobility, you have to get to a deeper passing game. Over the first 6 weeks, the Chargers have attempted the most passes smaller than 10 air yards in the league, which is pretty ridiculous, especially when you have Mike Williams, who is rather a deep receiver. I mean, I don't really get it. So some part is also not having that speed receiver on the outside. But also I think that with that talent at quarterback, you have to go, or you have to lean more into an offense that goes deeper from time to time. So these are my main takeaways. When it comes to the game, I mean, the number on the Chargers is coming down right now. I think it has a lot to do that Keenan Allen will probably not play. He said that he wants to sit this one out and want to be fresh back after the bye week. That is in week 8. And Joshua Palmer is now all of a sudden in a concussion protocol. Palmer had that injury, I think, on the first or second snap in the game against the Broncos, was tested for a concussion, was cleared, played 80 snaps or something, and now he's in the concussion protocol. Apparently he has some symptoms. So, and Palmer was really getting into a groove this season. So that's your wide receiver 1, your wide receiver 3 out, even if it's a Seahawks defense that has not been good. That really makes sense that the line is coming down. And I think if you want to bet the Chargers at some point, you might probably wait a little bit longer, because if Joshua Palmer gets ruled out, if Keenan Allen gets ruled out, there might be more Seahawks money entering the market. Also, the total at 50.5 right now, it was above 51. It also makes sense that this is coming down with the way this injury report is shaking up. No strong opinion either way right now.
Yeah, Drew, you're kind of the current numbers. You're liking the Seahawks and the under here, and you played both of them.
Yeah, and actually, I like the Seahawks on the money line. I think you swing away there because at this point, sixes are gone. Play the money line. Almost all of it is based on a lot of what Suma said regarding the injury status for the Chargers, and particularly their offensive weapons. The Seattle Seahawks defense last week showed me enough that they are, and I had a general expectation over the balance of this season that unit was going to get better. And the reason why is because that is the only thing you can count on for Pete Carroll, is that Pete Carroll is going to develop his young defensive talent, because he takes special interest in those guys and really works hard to try to get them to develop and grow and become, top tier players. He did it with the Legion of Boom when those guys were all drafted as young talent. And I can see him doing it again with this young crew, particularly at the cornerback position. So the fact that they have starting to get a little bit of gel on the defensive side of the ball, going up against a team that has huge question marks on the offensive line and very, very, very suspect group of receivers, and an quarterback who's still dealing with a rib injury. All of that to me spells that the Chargers are not going to be ripping the roof off of the scoreboard here. Like, this is a team that I think is going to be lucky to get into the 20s, even up against, the Seahawks defense, which is perceived as quite poor. The other side of the ball, the other thing you can count on with Pete Carroll is that he is going to run the ball. And Kenneth Walker, his young rookie running back, has found he's found his legs. He's got a gear. And if there's one thing that you want to be doing against this iteration of the Chargers defense, it is running the ball. And they still have huge questions about their ability to stop the run in my mind. And I think they're going to be put to the test in this one, even if it does come down to, the Geno Smith's arm. If they are at a deficit here, I'm still liking the under. So I think there are two very fair ways to attack this one. Give me like a 20-17 Seahawks win on the legs of Kenneth Walker here. I think there's a realistic likelihood that that's how this breaks. Seahawks are priced in the $3 range. I make them closer to $2.50 here. So that's a big edge in a money line, which you don't see a ton of this time of the season. So not buying the Chargers being meaningful favorites here whatsoever. Short week, not a super difficult travel spot for Seattle. A lot of things kind of checking some boxes here for backing a Seattle team that I think is still amazingly live to win the NFC West. And if not, at least get a wild card spot. This team is weird. I don't get it. I didn't see it coming before the season at all. But I don't think you can really, you can't really question the way that Geno Smith is operating within this offense. And like I said, I think the defense will continue to get better as they get through the season.
Interesting. If you had to pick one play now, Drew, to lock in a bet, money line, point spread, or the total, what are you locking in?
Seahawks money line. Under. The under is so big. It's such a big number. I mean, it came off the key of 51. I bet it at 51. It's at 50 now.
50.5.
Now let's go with the money line. Let's stick with it.
Let's do it. We'll lock it in 3.1. I think we have the Seahawks at the moment, so we'll lock that in as a bet. As a Charger fan, I reluctantly agree with a lot of your points there regarding some of the negatives on the Chargers there, but I don't know if I'll personally be getting involved in that bet now to cheer on another team, but there's definitely a value play there for sure. So we'll move on to the final game we'll be covering, and spoiler alert, there will be a best bet coming up in this game, so I won't spoil it any further than that. Falcons 3.45, Bengals 1.36. The handicap gives Falcons a 6.5 head start, and the total is 46.5. Drew, we'll stick with you on this one, given you've got a strong shout here, but take it away on the Bengals and why you like them.
I'm feeling better about the Seahawks now than I was about, but I'll stick with my best bet as Bengals.
Well, no, you can change that now. I'll let you change.
No, we'll stick with Bengals.
Okay.
Bengals.
Okay.
The Bengals here, I think, should be laying north of a touchdown, and it is largely in part because of the way their offense matches up against the Falcons team that is suffering from a cluster injury at the cornerback position. Now, Casey Hayward surely unavailable for this game because he is on IR, and the big question now revolves around will AJ Terrell take the field or not? He is questionable. As far as I can tell you, I don't know one way or the other whether he goes or not, but if he is even 75%, that is a brutal matchup against a Cincinnati Bengals offense that is getting healthier and has as many weapons as they have in the passing game. I like what Burrow is evolving into this season. He is growing into what we expected as far as his ability to operate this offense. He is succeeding in spite of some of the terrible decisions that Zach Taylor is making. And I am holding on to my prior for the Bengals with for dear life. I think ultimately this is a great spot for them against this particular defense, considering the injuries and the fact that the Falcons really can't muster much of a pass rush to take advantage of the one weakness with the Bengals offense. Now you flip the script here, and there are some reasons to be concerned that the Falcons' unique running attack will be able to do what the Saints did last week and really get some, kind of gashing, big gaining runs against the Bengals defense. But I will still also go to war with my guy, Lou Anarumo, who continues to make some of the best halftime adjustments of any defensive coordinator in the NFL. And I would expect that he is spending his week looking at that Falcons tape and figuring out a way to kind of continue the adjustments he made in the second half of the Saints game, apply those in this Falcons game, and keep the Falcons on the ground. Ideally, we are talking about a multiple score game here where the Bengals are playing from ahead, at which point you're asking Marcus Mariota to throw you back into the game. That is the absolute perfect recipe for a Bengals cover in my mind. I need the Bengals to win for lots of future reasons, but I like them to cover at 6.5. Again, my fare is in the 7.5 range, considering who I expect to be available.
Yeah, Suma, you've also played the Bengals at -6.
Yeah, I would still agree with Drew at -6.5. At that number, it's still Bengals or nothing for me. I mean, everything what Drew has said, incredible matchup for the Bengals. Joe Burrow's passing grade drops 40 points when he's under pressure this season. And he will likely not be under pressure a lot in this game. And secondly, the Bengals are doing a transition on offense where they are basically going exclusively on shotgun. The early part of the season, Bengals under center, likely a run. Bengals in shotgun, likely a pass. So they were basically telegraphing all their plays. Their run game was not working. Their early down offense was very, very bad. And then now against the Saints, like every snap that was not a kneel down or a quarterback sneak was out of shotgun. Their running game is much better. Their offense is more cohesive. They are building RPOs on top of the shotgun play. They're trying to get the ball out quickly. And the combination with their offensive line getting a little bit better, exclusively shotgun, the run game getting a little bit better, more RPOs, just trying to get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins the ball in space. Higgins will likely be closer to 100% this week. He's coming off that ankle sprain. Putting all of this together makes this a dangerous offense going forward, and B, a dangerous offense in this particular matchup against a Falcons defense that should be all overmatched at the line of scrimmage, in the secondary, at the linebacker level, like in every phase of the game. This could really be a smash spot for the Bengals offense. And then the other question is, I think the only path for success for the Falcons is if they can run the ball well and not get behind by multiple scores. Because at some point, if the Bengals are able to score, Mariota has to drop back to pass, and he cannot stay at 14 pass attempts again this time. At some point, he really has to drop back, and then I'm not very sure that the Falcons can effectively move the ball when you take away all the elements that their diverse run game provides every week. So completely agree, great spot for the Bengals here.
Yeah, and we'll -6.5. We won't lock it in as we'll wait for best bets, but I won't spoil it any further than that. Drew, you have a couple of other plays if you want to run through them there for the viewers.
Yeah, I played two other totals here. The first one is pretty straightforward. A lot of injuries here for the Ravens offensively, which is starting to scare anyone, I would hope, that has laid the points with the Ravens. But the Browns defense, it's soft. Ravens are going to get it going on the ground to a degree, I would expect. I think they can put this game away somewhat comfortably. Not expecting Jacoby Brissett to be able to let it up through the air. 46 is about 3 points too high in my mind, so happy to take an under 46 there. Don't know why this ticked up either, especially considering what the Ravens injury report looked like today. The other total I like is the over between the Packers and the Commanders. This is somewhat based on the Packers defense really being downgraded by my numbers. Commanders going with Heineke instead of Wentz here. I think that actually opens up their offense a little bit because of the way that Scott Turner likes to operate. I think Scott Turner's general kind of fundamentals in terms of offensive philosophy match up well against the Packers team, and the Commanders are going to get into the 20s here, at which point even Aaron Rodgers, with a little bit of an injury that he's dealing with, I would expect to be able to answer. This total, I also make 43, so I played over 41.
Some good plays there. Suma, you like a under. It's the Texans at the Raiders.
Yeah, I like that under. Texans offense, very, very bad. I don't trust them at all. Tough road game in a, let's quote unquote, hostile environment at Las Vegas. I think the Raiders pass rush should get something going at the line of scrimmage here. And I just don't really see the ceiling with the Texans offense in general. The Raiders are better against the run, and the run game was basically the only offense for the Texans recently. So I think that there are some advantages. And on the other side, Raiders offense, most likely without Darren Waller. They have been very inconsistent through the air. They played well on Monday Night Football against the Chiefs, but the Chiefs also play a much more aggressive defense than the Houston Texans. Texans play a little bit more these cover 2, cover 4 zone looks. Derek Stingley and the other rookie Petrie really having a solid season. So I think they will probably force the Raiders to get more small steps on the ground, etc. So overall, I think this game really shapes up for a decent underplay, in my opinion.
We're best bets time. Drew, I'll give you maybe 30 to 45 more seconds to explain why Bengals.
Sure. Of all the sides this week, I think this one is the perfect matchup just because of the injuries going on with the Falcons and the Bengals offense hopefully getting healthier now. I'm counting on injuries, which is never a great feeling, but at the same time, if there was ever a get going spot for an offense, Bengals coming off a 30 points against the Saints, I think they up that to a degree against the Falcons here, and Falcons offense looks solvable to me.
You've heard it here, guys. Confident selection from Drew, and we'll go to you, Suma. Your best bet on the Week 7 card.
Yeah, going for 6 straight losses. Hopefully that some regression will hit me well this week. Really
hopefully you and the Jags.
Yes.
two years in it.
Yeah, tough week. Trying to bounce back this week with the Jaguars. I mean, we talked about this game. I think that the Jaguars in general are the better team, great spot at home. I'm expecting some late down regression for both teams, where the Jaguars have been particularly bad. Giants have been much better on late downs, worse on early downs. I think all those things come together. I think the Jaguars will be able to move the ball on that aggressive Wink Martindale defense. And maybe for once the Giants will not be able to orchestrate a crazy late magical comeback.
Time will tell there. So the 2 bets are locked in, and all the other bets, they'll be recapped on Matchbook Insights. And we see a lot of you guys going for, in the page view numbers are up this year. So we appreciate it. We'll see you all over there. Recap all the guys' bets. Drew, my thanks to you. My thanks to Suma. Guys, thanks a million for coming on.
Have a good time.
We'll be back same time, same place with Rob Pizzola, and we'll get a full team, full squad available. Hopefully the injury report will be clear next week. Enjoy the football, guys, and we'll chat to you next week. Take it easy.